Yeah, one A, one B, one
I'm
C.
not gonna talk for that except what I usually do.
Yeah, and
then I
you
start
just call
talking
this,
when
the
it-
manager does this, and then you do one, two,
We're gonna be doing everything.
you do two, yeah, so I added those.
Yeah.
Right. Numbers there.
Yes, it does. Thank you, thank you.
I know, I was like,
Five
wait a
minutes
second.
ago, she had to pick up her kid at 5.
I'm trying my best here.
Jeremy, is Lori confirmed not gonna be there?
She's
Oh, she's gonna be here. Oh,
She,
good.
has to pick up her kid at Jupiter Christian at 5, so I'm assuming she'll be here right in any minute or after.
Should we
That
wait?
Clicker's up there. Clicker's up there?
Should we wait for her then, or go at 5:30?
It's your choice.
What?
It's 5:30 to whenever.
I'm here forever, man, whatever.
Just going off my calendar.
Enough people to vote on the,
Yeah.
on the millage rate that's being recommended, as long as you're all in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start
As
at
long as that
5:30.
goes rogue on you.
Well, no, yeah, we were worried that earlier because I know she was maybe, so like, wait, how many people, because we haven't looked, how many people need to be there for sure? I know, it's bugging Jeremy today with all, who's over there? How many votes? Everyone knows 5:30.
I think she's pretty close, so we can probably, I mean, unless you want to just get started.
I'm just gonna start.
Well, we have a president, so.
We'll be good.
Husband years, right?
I mean, hey, Chief. Chief, can you close that for me? Thank you.
I do Halloween accessories.
Yeah, get into the park. Practice early.
Kinda. I popped my hip out of place.
Oh, fun. Just means you're trying hard.
Or as he put it, it was jammed up into my throat.
Sounds so comfortable.
Now we're letting the joint heal. A little bit.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's September 5th, 2024, and it is our special council meeting for our first budget hearing. Lori, can I get roll call?
Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sartori,
Here.
Councilmember Brandon,
Here.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember French.
Here.
Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any communications from the citizens? Okay, moving on to the agenda. Items 1A, which is to announce the proposed millage rate. B, announce the proposed operating millage rate necessary to fund the budget. And C, summary of proposed budget are all going to be presented now by the manager.
All right, thank you. Village of Tequesta is a taxing authority. The proposed millage rate is 6.4595 mils. Proposed operating millage rate necessary to fund the budget is 8.60% greater than the rollback rate of 5.9479 mils. The specific purposes for which ad valorem revenues are being increased are to cover the increased operational costs and planning associated with parks and mobility. Mr. Jeff Snyder is going to provide a summary of the budget for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. It's good to see you. I'm glad to be here. As you know, the budget's a very important document for the village. It serves as a management guide. It also includes a commitment to our efficiencies and effective management of the village resources. And it takes into account all your priorities, your strategic plan, and your vision. So that's what this plan was built on. And it started in February actually. Initiative started in February. Budget process begins pretty much in March. You've had a budget workshop June 24th. You had a budget workshop July 22nd, and now you're at your first budget hearing. You have another budget hearing on the 12th of September, and it will be equally as fun. This is the time that finance loves. Here's our last 10-year millage rate history. Overall, the taxes are increasing 9.56% in taxable value. The increase is really due to new construction and other property sales, and the property sales reset our Save Our Homes exemption. Homesteaded property is limited to CPI or 3%, whichever is less, and non-homesteaded is limited to 10%, as well as commercial property. There's two things to talk about that are still out. Well, one thing is still outstanding, and then we changed the budget from the time our last meeting was the revenues for the refuse and recycling fund went up $108,986, as did the expenditures for the automated waste management's automated pickup. And then the budget will be impacted by the IAFF negotiations when the CBA is finalized. And as previously discussed, the impacts of the agreements will impact programs or projects currently included. So just to keep that in mind. Proposed village employee salary increases, PBA officers, 11%. We're in negotiations, as I said, with the IAFF. Non-represented, 4%, and CWA, 4%. Here's a budget summary. We're looking at $48,702,000 and change. The big increases, we're trying to stand up a vehicle replacement fund, and that's about $3 million in government. It's kind of like a parent subsidiary companies where you get rid of inter-parent or inter-government or business activity. We don't get rid of it here until we do our other reporting. So it shows up as $3 additional million. We also have $2.5 million for improvements, infrastructure improvements, and then the general fund has $1.1 million going to the capital vehicle replacement and $850,000 for public safety. So those are the big changes. Here's how the general fund looks at the expenditures. It's $19,510,000. Our wages are $7.8 million, benefits $3.8 million, expenditures are $5.1 million, $5.2 million. You'll see that salary and wages are at 60%, and that's really good for general fund, because we're basically all service, customer service people. And here is the revenues. Our general property taxes are the vast majority of our revenues. We're also using $500,000 to stand up the vehicle replacement fund from the general fund of reserves. General fund balance, you can see it comes down. We still have a healthy fund balance, and we're within our 3 months operating reserves, which is what we'd like to be. Building fund, their budget is $1.2 million, $1.25 million. They have $608,000 in building permit fees budgeted, interest earnings of $25,000, and they propose using $618,000. Now, they really don't use that much, but that, if they didn't get the money, that's where they would be. Expenditure breakdowns, operating expenses are $419,000, and personnel services are almost $800,000. Here's how their budget would impact their reserves, but I don't think they're going to spend all the money or get more money. Capital improvement, we're doing a lot of capital improvement. We have a budget of $1.2 million in the capital improvement fund, $1.7 million in the capital projects fund, and then $131,000 in special law enforcement. Our 5-year capital improvement program, we're looking at a $55 million plan, very aggressive, and it's very comprehensive. Here you go through the smaller items as you go down through it. We're going to have the Tequesta Park improvement project. That's about $1 million. We also have a 5-year road capital improvement plan and our 5-year sidewalk capital improvement plan. Greg went out and got a grant from FERDAP, so we have $150,000 going to Tequesta Park for improvements. Here you can see water has a tremendous amount of projects. They're at $14.8 million in projects slated for this year. The big ones are the waste management #2 Phase 2 Beach Road water rebate or water replacement program, main replacement program, and also their upgrades to the water treatment plant, and that's $6 million. And then we have the vehicles that are planned to be purchased, $270 for the police department to get their new cars, and so on. Our surtax and utility tax fund, 301, that's a capital improvement fund. This is how the budget's looking here. We got about $500,000 left after the end of the year. We're doing the Tequesta Park improvement project out of this fund. We're also doing the 5-year Tequesta improvement bridge improvement plan. We're starting the first year at $100,000, and then it follows up by, I think it's $400,000 the following year. And then we have our 5-year road CIP fund, and we're still pretty healthy in that fund. Transportation plan with mobility planning is $125,000, that's there. And then Greg's Tequesta grant, Tequesta Park grant. Water utility has $21.7 million or $8 million. Refuse and recycling, $742,000, and stormwater utilities, $836,000. The water utility fund, we're planning on using some of the reserves, which is a planned spend down of reserves. We had a rate increase of 3.5%. We talked about the $6 million improvement for the water treatment plant and the Beach Road water main replacement program for $4.3 million. Then there's several other smaller projects, but still substantial projects. Waste management is going up 21% on their non-ad valorem tax, and that is for the automated trash pickup. And so we did well there. It's $3.46 a month. Nobody likes a raise, but I think this will be well worth it. And then stormwater, we had a rate increase of 5%, and that's 56 cents a month for 68% of the single-family homes. And the main project there will be Dover Ditch. They'll be redoing Dover Ditch. And then our vehicle replacement fund, it's actually a good thing if you can stand it up and get it going, and we seem to have effectively done that. So I think we'll be happy with that. It smooths out our payment process through the years, and doesn't have big fire truck purchases one year and down you go. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, with that, I'll move on to agenda item 1D, citizen comment. So any member of the public desiring to address the village council on the proposed millage rate or the proposed budget will be given the opportunity to do so. The public is permitted to ask questions prior to the adoption of any motions. Do we have any public comment? Okay, I'll close the public portion of the hearing, and now I'll open up for council discussion. Any questions or comments?
I have one question. We mentioned IFF negotiations are ongoing. Where is that money going to come from when it's concluded in the budget?
So I don't want to speak for council. I mean, our conversations that we've had in the past is that right now we have a phase 2 money set aside for Remembrance Park. I think it was like $550,000. You know, at that point, we would have to pivot from that park planning and probably take money from that.
Okay, thank you.
But, you know, that would be council's discretion. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can go back to the drawing board, something like that at a later date.
if there is an effect, my preference would be taking it from the vehicle replacement fund, not the Tequesta Park. And this is the first time I'm hearing, kind of that part where it would come from. So I would like a little bit of time to think about it as well. My initial reaction is to reduce the vehicle replacement fund opposed to the park.
Jeremy, the current budget has historical numbers in there. I mean, there's something, right? So we're not shy by the $2 million or whatever the personnel cost is for fire. There's something in there currently for fire, correct?
Yeah, we have a placeholder in there at
So
4%, I
4%
believe, which
increase.
is what we did with everybody else.
That's
So
right. I
think
just
that-
want to confirm
put that
that.
placeholder in there.
And my other was not a question but a comment. Great job, Jeff, you and your staff. When I look at the budget and the comparison millage rates from surrounding municipalities, especially ones that have their own fire department and police department, we're seeing 7 mils, 8.5 mils, and you did that at 6.45, your staff as well, and previous council. Phenomenal job, and we do not have commercial high rises, and we still got to that millage rate. I think that's amazing. Good job.
No.
Councilmember Painter?
Nothing except thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Same thing. Just thank you for all the hard work.
Couple quick things, some just to get on record. The bridge concentrate disposal, I know we approved that contract and we weren't sure if it was gonna hit this year or next. Has that been confirmed? Is it in fact going to hit next
Yeah, we
October
have
1, or is it?
the US 1 bridge relocation. We have not started that project
Okay, so
yet.
it's-
So, I mean, unless it hits in the next couple of weeks. I know, I'm gonna say like 2 weeks ago, she had told me it was like 3 weeks out, so I think it's gonna fit right around when the budget is, but we'll just roll over the PO that we have for that
Okay,
project.
so it's likely gonna hit next year then, for sure, by the way.
Yes,
latest
the
and greatest that
expenses,
you
the
have.
expenses
Okay.
will all fall into next year, but the PO will just roll over.
Perfect, okay. And then, I know I brought this up at our budget workshops, the vehicle for the damage assessment team. It's under the vehicle replacement fund capital request, but that's being funded from the building department fund though, correct? Not the vehicle
Yes, ma'am.
replacement fund.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody has to fund the vehicle replacement plan or fund, and then it just builds money up and then spends it as the plan goes along.
Right, but it's coming from the building department fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. And I know I've kind of been on the fence if this is really a necessity, and is there anything, maybe a moot point, because I know what you just said about the building fund, like they might not spend it all, but I know there was like a generator project that they were looking at. I mean, do we have plenty of funding for all the other projects?
Yeah, everything's funded now. I know we have another meeting, or we already had another meeting regarding the generator. And so, the cost we're looking at kind of pivoting, or we'll see what the selection committee says on that. But currently, everything we have is funded, and, we don't have a shortfall in the building department.
Okay, something just to consider if the generator cost becomes an issue.
Yeah.
The Tequesta Park improvement, I know we're budgeting $931,000. I know Vice Mayor had questioned that in the past, but is there any update on that, if we expect that to come in under?
So we are expecting to go over. We had an initial meeting with Kimley Horn, who is our consultant on the designs, and I know Jeff accidentally slipped a little bit and said that was a improvement project. The money that we have set aside is really, I guess it's a future improvement project, but really what we're trying to do is do the design and construction phase design for that. So we met with Kimley Horn. The lower number that we had that we're projecting is 758 now instead of the 931. So of that, 340 is a state appropriation, and then 250, and then I guess the rest of it would become from our funds, like the other 500,000. So we're anticipating being under that 931 is the ballpark of that. But most of that money is in the 301 fund, and it's not general fund revenue.
Right. Okay. Good news, though. I know that was one of your concerns. I want to make sure that was on record. And I've brought this up at previous budget workshops. I'm still on the fence of spending the money on the Planning and Remembrance Park Phase 2. 100% want the project to happen, but I still think there might be value into completing the first phase, seeing how it goes, because it might make adjustments on planning of the second phase. So, and we do know this 301 fund is an infrastructure surtax, which we know is sunsetting soon. So I just want to throw that out again. I know it's on our strategic plan, and we want to be careful. We don't want to, continue to alter or change the strategic plan goals that we set. But there just might be some value there to waiting. Still want it to happen, but again, if there's changes down the road because of what pans out with phase one, we're going to be paying twice.
I agree with that, Mayor. I mean, we're almost at the end of this fiscal year, and, we've got some dirt moved, so I think it's gonna be a little bit longer. We won't even have time to enjoy it, I think, in the next fiscal year. So I could, I support taking the any overage through IAFF negotiations out of Remembrance Park. Not, I think, Councilmember, I think you said Tequesta Park, but it's Remembrance Park where the.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, just want to
Thank
make, just, so I would be in favor of, kicking that can down the road for a year if need be, because I think we're not going to be enjoying it first. I think we're planning for phase two, and we're still really not even on, I guess, we're out of the ground on phase one, but we've got a way to go still.
So I heard the relevant comments about waiting, but that money for Remembrance Park is scheduled in the surtax fund, so it won't have any impact on the IFF negotiations and whatever we end up having to change the budget. So just FYI.
So did you say Tequesta Park earlier or Remembrance Park?
Both. They're both out of the 301 fund. So it won't, neither one of them will have, we're not going to, the part that we have set aside for Remembrance Park, always the plan for Remembrance Park was this year we were just going to do planning for it. So we were going to spend $103,000 out of the 301 fund and do the planning for it kind of as a phased approach. And then the following year we'd come back. And we're estimating that project to be $1.2 million based on what we're doing. So what we've done in the budget is we've set aside half of that money of $550,000. That is general fund, so maybe that's where you were going with that. That we were going to set aside for this year, and then we come back next year and do the other half of that. So we can't break every bit of that off in 1 year. So we were going to try to get there in phases for the money part. So maybe the answer to your question, I probably was a little premature, but there is $103,000 for planning that we're planning on doing this year that is in the surtax funds, and then there's another $550,000 in the general fund for that.
But yeah, the 301 fund, that's where we get the surtax and some other tax, but the one that's sunsetting that we get, anywhere from 400 to 500,000 a year.
Pretty close to 6 now.
Which is 2026 it sunsets. So, or is it end of next year? It's,
Into 2025.
by law, it was to, sunset, but it's gonna sunset early next December. So yeah, again, like I said, maybe just shift it a year. Just wanted to throw it out there. So we're not paying twice to do redesign and whatnot.
I think it makes sense as long as it's not going to create a further delay. I think it makes a lot of sense. And we're still allowed to use that funds, even though it sunsets, we can still use it afterwards. We just have to use it for the same.
It's not user
If we have a
reason.
balance, the balance will carry forward until we're done.
Okay.
We still have to report it on an annual basis until those funds are exhausted.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I completely want the project to happen. I've been a huge supporter of the park. I feel like it's just making sure the timing's correct. Any other council input? Councilmember Brandon?
Not really.
No?
On that subject? Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
I
right.
agree, especially, I'm talking specifically about the planning for Remembrance, 103. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you're right. I mean, we might, as phase one continues or it's finished, we might have a whole different idea of what it, could be. So it could be, we end up wasting some money there. So I'm in favor of considering that.
When does construction end? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Spring of next year, so I think we're looking at early spring, March or April.
And when would we
So-
start spending these dollars for planning for phase two?
So there's always the plan, at least from our side, obviously it's up to the council, but our plan was in October, bringing you guys an agreement to start the planning of Remembrance Park, unless we're looking to delay that and just, sit on that, which we can, if
Okay.
that's what council wants to do. But we were gonna kick it off and spend the next 6 months, 8 months doing the planning part for Remembrance Park, so that way when we hit the next year, 25-26 budget, we'd be looking at turning dirt again. But, I mean, that's at the discretion of the council.
So it finishes on time in March, it'll be like 6 months of use and feedback on the park, and then could budget for it next year and start design October of the following year. So that way there's some usage, we can see what the usage is too, and get feedback. But like I said, I'm totally open to anyone's view on that. I just want to make sure we're being efficient. And Councilmember Brandon, looks like you're still thinking.
That's fine. I see what you're saying. If it has to do with anything with IAFFF, I'd rather have those conversations in our negotiations meeting as far as budgeting what we're negotiating right now. But as far as planning, I understand and I can agree with you. Let's get done with phase 1 first and then not repeat. If there's tweaks we have to make after the result of phase 1, we can do that more efficiently, not spend money twice.
And if we push here, the planning would still be, you'd still keep that money or take it from the 301 fund, so it wouldn't be from the general fund.
Right, it
Yeah,
would just,
so it
we
would
just
still be
wouldn't
the same.
expend it. We'd
Okay.
probably bring you guys back a document next week. We can turn it around that doesn't show the 103 as in part of the capital expenditure, and that money will just stay in that fund.
This is my lack of knowledge on the planning process, but instead of starting at October 1, could we wait till March or so? And still, so it's still in the same fiscal year, not take it out, but just kind of delay ourselves so we're not having to replan the plan again.
I think it'd be the easiest approach, especially from the budget standpoint, not changing anything at this point. Leave it in, we won't spend it, we won't bring you guys anything in October, you know, and as, if there's a desire by council to bring that up in the one of the future meetings and say, well, hey, we're ready to have that conversation, let's workshop it, then we can do it at that point. But I don't think it'll change anything in the budget, unless Mr. Snyder has any objection to that.
None at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that could definitely, leave it in there, but then like that way, if we decide we want to start
Just
planning
slides
like
the timeline.
August next year, we have the funds. in
Besides the
there.
timeline, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that path then. We know we're not gonna pull the trigger in October. We'll wait till the park's open and revisit.
There's
Perfect.
no change in the budget, just the spirit of how we're approaching it.
Yeah,
The timeline might slide from
Okay.
October to May.
It's a great
Write that
idea.
check.
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. And then just for record, I know we budgeted $125,000 for the transportation plan and mobility, but I do think we got a TPA grant for how much?
So we were always, it's 125 is what we've always planned. We've always planned to get, we hoped with Jay's conversation and with TPA that we were gonna get $50,000. And so we budgeted 125 for the expenditure, but we budgeted 50 for a revenue. And so TPA has confirmed that we're gonna get that money, and so we're on track. Nothing should change with that. So we anticipated the 50, and you know, we were crossing our fingers because I know the last couple of years we put in for a grant, not through TPA, to get some of that mobility planning money, and we weren't successful with the grant. So the TPA, you know, big step for us to, you know, partner with them and, you know, them to help us with that phase. And, you know, as the mayor knows, this is a county-wide issue that's a very hot topic right now. And so I think us leaning forward into that is a big step, that not everybody's doing that. And we've been trying for 2 years, but this will be a big step for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I just want to get the grant on record, because I know that staff's always working hard to find other funding when we can. And I think my last comment was on the refuse and recycling, nothing related to the budget, but I know that we did approve having that little admin charge with the rate increase, and it might be a good idea to kind of have a policy or define what that can be spent on. So if council agrees, I would like staff to eventually bring that to us, and we can workshop it
Sure.
down the road if everyone thinks that's a good idea.
Fine.
Yes.
Yes, sure.
Okay, that was it. And yeah, great job, staff. This is a really long process for you all. So we appreciate all your efforts. All right, with that, I'm gonna close the public hearing if council's good to go. Moving on to agenda item 2, approval of proposed millage rate. By motion, the Village of Tequesta should adopt the tentative millage rate. The motion should be that the tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 be set at 6.4595 mils. Do I have a motion to set the tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 at 6.4595 mils?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 3, adopt the proposed budget. By motion, the Village of Tequesta should adopt the tentative budget. The motion should be that the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 budget be tentatively adopted. Do I have a motion for the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget to be tentatively adopted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, agenda item 4, I'm going to announce the time and place of the final hearing. It will be September 12th, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the Village Council chambers. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.